Bapak Diomedes Beroa, Project Manager, World Bank. Ibu Galia Ismakova, Director, PFPP, Asian Development Bank. Bapak Amir Mir, Manager Project Procurement, NFM, Islamic Development Bank. Bapak Ibu, Senior Associate Officers of National Public Procurement Agency. Bapak Nicholas Penagos and colleagues, MAP Secretariat, and all speakers, moderators, and participants at the webinar MAPS Assessment of Indonesia. It is truly an honor to address you all at the MAPS Assessment of Indonesia webinar organized by the World Bank in collaborations with its team development partners. This webinar represents a significant milestone in our journey towards modernizing public procurement in Indonesia. The collaborative efforts between LKPP and the World Bank have fostered a strong partnerships, particularly in advancing the methodology for assessing procurement system maps. This partnership, which started in 2019-2020, has been instrumental to enhancing our government's procurement policies, regulations, and systems. Dear colleagues, when I was a child, I was not comfortable seeing myself in the mirror, particularly when I was on purpose comparing myself with many beautiful girls out there. I saw a lot of things that needed to be changed, fixed, corrected. For example, I need a cute pointed nose, or body height, and many other things. I saw what I saw that day. I overlooked the fact that most of it would change in time, and it is okay to change gradually or even a little bit slow. This is what I see in MAPS exercise. MAPS is like a mirror to help us to assess ourselves. Perhaps most of us are not comfortable seeing the result of MAPS, since we always think most of GP policy, procedures, systems are in place. And even the ecosystem itself already works well for us so far. But we need to be brave to look at ourselves. Conducting MAPS exercise is not the first time for Indonesia. We were conducting the first one in 2016. A lot of recommendations were provided and then followed up and shape what we have today. Not all recommendations could be immediately followed up. Some issues need some time to be adjusted. Some issues need even more time to be made or modified due to national policy related. Or even an issue is still struggling to come out. For example, public procurement law in Indonesia. But it is okay to respond slower than others, gradually. I believe that 2024 MAPS exercise produced more comprehensive and in-depth recommendations. Today, we are lucky because the path to improve and modernize procurement in Indonesia is wide open. Indonesia plans to be a member of OECD, and we are now working on that issues. Indonesia accession to the OECD, as our president's mandated, ordered, who has emphasized our goal of becoming an OECD member. And we are committed to leveraging this opportunity to drive domestic reforms, particularly in public procurement. The establishment national team for the preparations and accelerations of Indonesia's OECD members highlight our determination to align with global standards and champion sustainable development. The initial self-assessment regarding potential gaps in our public procurement policies, coupled with the MAP's findings, serve as an official critical foundations for measuring our readiness for OECD accession. The actionable insight from the MAP's assessment reflects our commitment to implementing strategies that will bring a modern, sustainable, and impactful procurement systems. To achieve these goals, we must continue fostering strong partnerships with development partners and other stakeholders. In conclusion, I hope this webinar serves as a valuable platform to capture the MAP's assessment result and strengthen our collaborative efforts. It is an evidence of the harmonious relationship between LKPP, the World Bank, and our development partners, all dedicated to fostering credible, inclusive, and sustainable procurement that contributes to national economic growth. That's all that I can convey. Thank you very much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Ms. Adhika. And as we were mentioning, along with LKPP Indonesia, there were 3 multilateral development banks that collaborated to make this assessment possible. So first, I'd like to give the floor to Michael Graeme Osborne, Procurement Hub Leader for Indonesia and Timor-Leste at the World Bank, to provide some opening remarks in this session. Michael, you may go ahead.
Terima kasih, Nicholas. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. My name is Michael Osborne. I'm very pleased to be with you in this webinar session on the Indonesian MAPS assessment. On behalf of the World Bank, I would like to express our sincere thanks to the MAPS Secretariat for organizing this session, and to obviously our main counterpart, LKPP, for excellent collaboration and cooperation, along with Asian Development Bank and Islamic Development Bank colleagues. And lastly, thank you to all the attendees. As a procurement function, we all know the critical role that public procurement plays as a strategic driver for accomplishing economic growth, environmental, technological, and social objectives. And over the last decade, the understanding of public procurement has really evolved from a compliance administrative function into a far more strategic, performance-based government function that involves active participation of multiple stakeholders, including CSOs and citizens. This evolution of the role of public procurement has resulted in a new generation of procurement systems, reforms, with a greater focus on improved procurement outcomes and evidence-based performance. We're seeing enhanced oversight and anti-corruption mechanisms. And now we're at an exciting point where innovative approaches to procurement that take advantage of big data and artificial intelligence are really driving improvements through countries' procurement functions. The bank has been heavily involved in assisting member countries globally, including Indonesia, in the reform and modernization of their public procurement systems. And we were very pleased to receive the 2019 expression of interest to undertake the joint assessment of the Indonesian country procurement system using the OECD MAPS methodology. The decision to initiate this MAPS exercise has also received strong interest and support from Asian Development Bank and Islamic Development Bank. And this collaborative exercise is a timely opportunity to explore the possibility of implementing a modern, efficient, sustainable, and more inclusive public procurement system in Indonesia, and to continue the work that's already well underway on priority reform activities. We're happy that we can finally complete the assessment, and the MAPS report, as many of you will know, was already published in July. Today, we're meeting with you to brief you on the assessment, including the key findings and recommendations. We understand the LKPP is already well underway with some of these MAPS recommendations, including the preparation of the draft public procurement law. And the World Bank would be happy to continue supporting LKPP on these procurement reforms in Indonesia. Once again, thank you, and I look forward to a fruitful and insightful discussion.
Thank you, Michael. I will go next to Ms. Galia Ismakova, Director PFP2 at the Asian Development Bank. Galia, the floor is yours.
Terima kasih, Nicholas, and all the participants. Good afternoon, distinguished guests and colleagues. Firstly, allow me to extend my gratitude to the Government of Indonesia and National Public Procurement Agency LKPP leadership and development partners that made the assessment of public procurement system of Indonesia possible. The partners that included the World Bank, Islamic Development Bank, the European Union, Government of Canada, and Swiss Confederation. My ADB colleagues, Ms. Keiko Koiso, Ibu Yani, and Ibu Olga Suyatmo, all-female team, represented ADB in this important collaboration event. Thank you to all of you for taking the time to engage in what promises to be an enlightening and productive discussion. As Ibu Saro said, while looking at the mirror, we look at points in which we need to improve ourselves. And this process is of continuous improvement. The integrity and efficiency of procurement system are crucial components of effective governance, and their assessment provides invaluable insights into areas of strengths and opportunities for improvement. The government of Indonesia has made substantial and consistent procurement reform efforts over the last 2 decades. Capitalizing on these reforms, this assessment, applying the methodology for assessing procurement systems, constitutes the first ever comprehensive review of country public procurement system using MAPS 2018 methodology. The recent assessment for Indonesia stands as a testament to this methodology robustness and versatility. Indonesia, with its vast and complex procurement landscape, presented unique challenges and opportunities that have enriched our understanding and application of the MAPS framework. The findings from Indonesia not only highlight the progress that was made, but also underscore the areas that require continued effort and innovation, including areas of digital transformation of public procurement and mainstreaming of sustainable procurement considerations. I'm very honored to say that ADB is supporting the government of Indonesia in both digital transformation of public procurement and mainstreaming of sustainable procurement. Our session today will delve into intricate details of the assessment, and we will explore how MAPS framework was leveraged to foster transparency, enhance efficiency, and promote accountability within Indonesia's procurement system. I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the team that led the MAPS assessment for Indonesia. As we heard, initially, the request for MAPS assessment came in 2019. And the assessment started during challenging period of COVID-19 restriction. It is a testament to the robust collaboration of all development partners, including Government of Indonesia, that MAPS assessment team was able to collate and analyze the information despite the challenges. Their dedication and expertise have been instrumental in achieving a thorough and insightful evaluation. I also wish to acknowledge the support and collaboration from various stakeholders, civil society organizations, SOEs, whose contribution have been invaluable. As we embark on this session, I encourage you all to engage actively, share your perspective, and contribute to the collective knowledge. Together, we can advance our understanding of procurement system and work towards ensuring that they serve the public interest with the highest standards of integrity and effectiveness. Thank you very much again for being here. I look forward to fruitful and stimulating discussion. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Karia. And finally, for these opening remarks, I would like to invite Mr. Amir Mir, Manager, Project Procurement and Fiscal Management at the Islamic Development Bank. You may go ahead, Amir.
Thank you, Nicholas. Mr. Acting Chairman of the National Procurement Agency for Indonesia, Deputy Chairman, Representative of LKPP, Development Partners, fellow MDBs, colleagues in the MAP Secretariat. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to represent and present our thoughts and the contribution that we making for promoting national procurement agency in terms of strengthening their procurement framework, system, regulation in Indonesia. I'm talking to you from London, where head of 16 multilateral institutions are deliberating how the global procurement framework should be done in a manner that can enable the government to sustain the national development in a better manner, but also that how the MDB's contribution can catalyze these transformation at the national level. I think we are also deliberating on the challenges what we face, but also the technologies have provided us opportunities on a lot of solutions to bring the efficiencies as well as the governance improvement and the transparency in the procurement process, which are the critical elements, and also leverage on the supply chains on the global level and address some of the challenges that we faced in the COVID period that have been a lot of lessons for us how the procurement should be done in challenging circumstances. And we're also deliberating how to ensure that the procurement contribute to sustainable development at the national level and also capture the key results in terms of the value for money the procurement process delivers for the country. And I would like to thank the government of Indonesia for being very open, candid in terms of not only looking the internal reform, but also asking the international community using the standard methodology to assess the procurement system and identify the areas which could be help us to reach at a level where all the international donors have the confidence in using the national procurement system of government of Indonesia. The MAPS assessment is a critical milestone which enhances the government effort in terms of improving, enhancing, and modernizing the procurement system. This initiative is about transformation of the procurement process, ensuring that sustainable, transparent, efficient procurement systems are in place at the national development use of resources, but also from the donor financing. Ultimate objective is how these procurement processes delivers better value for money for the beneficiary of the development financing, where the tremendous resources are investment by the national government using their own procurement system. So it will give the confidence once we have a credible assessment done by the independent agencies like the MAP Secretariat and the MDB's contribution, it can fundamentally transform and help the system to be at the international standards based on the best practices across the globe. I'm really grateful to the collaborative effort we had led by the MAP Secretariat, supported by the World Bank, Asian Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank, the key partners on the ground with the objective to initiate a reform process that address some of the challenges that we still continue to face in Indonesia, especially on competitiveness of the procurement processes and the international competitive bidding process, which should be at the standard of the MDBs, and also the competitive process to be the default choice in all the procurement activities the government undertakes. We would also like to build through this initiative the confidence of the markets and the players, the bidders, who should have the confidence that every opportunity they see it is credible, fair, and competitive and transparent to be participating. We are also in favor of promoting the state-owned enterprises and the small and medium industries, but we need to be mindful that their opportunities should also be ensuring that we remain competitive in the process and giving the level playing field to all the participants to take the opportunity, but also deliver us the more competitive price and the value for each bidding opportunity. We are also seeing the restrictions on the foreign bidders, and especially the need to collaborate with the domestic entities. Although it's a win-win for the country as well as external partners, but it has certain impact on the competitive prices. We need to ensure that the healthier competition remain as a stimulus and create the environment which is the dynamic and the promoting the markets within the country. The private sector has critical role to play in infrastructure, social development projects, and we are facing some of the challenges to realize the full potential in terms of the investment that we are making in the countries. We are as a part of the journey to provide all hand-holding support to the government of Indonesia as well as the LKPP for their commitments to go for the assessment, but more further important is how to successfully implement some of the areas for improvement, which will bring more credibility to the national procurement process and confidence in the market. Our journey does not stop here in terms of the completing the assessment and sharing with you the knowledge. But for us, it was a more inclusive process where the government of Indonesia was in the center driving this assessment process and their help and support, which enable us to complete this despite the challenges of the COVID. So we, government of Indonesia and the development partners and the key stakeholders will continue to work together in terms of building a more modern, efficient procurement system for Indonesia. It is very critical for the ambitions of Indonesia to be joining the OECD and also the active members of the G20, but also be raising their economic status to be in the developing and the high income countries. Procurement system will notably drive the economic growth and development, but also it will benefit the people of Indonesia in terms of the investment, public sector, private sector, bilateral and multilateral donors are making in the contribution. I'd like to thank all the one who have made this journey a successful one and will continue to be a stronger partnership in terms of ensuring implementation of some of the areas which have been identified for improvement. Let's work together in the overcoming some of the challenges that we face in the procurement process and ensure that technology and the big information, big data sources could guide the management in better decision-making in the procurement process. I'd like to thank once again for the MAP Secretariat, LKPP, as well as our MDP partners for joining us today for this initiative. And we would like to reassure that we are support and standing behind the government of Indonesia to lead this transformation and will provide whatever support that is required from the multilateral institution. So we'd like to see a better future for the people of Indonesia to be standing at the global platforms representing the developing countries in a better manner and showing the success what they materialize in the country. So with this, I'd like to thank you all and conclude my remarks. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you, and over to you.
Thank you, Amir, and thank you, colleagues, for opening this webinar. So I would like now to give the floor to Budi Permana, Senior Procurement Specialist at the World Bank, who will present the findings and recommendations of this assessment. Hopefully you can do that in the most concise manner so that we can afterwards hear from the country authorities about the implementation of recommendations. So over to you, Budi.
Thank you, Nicholas. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, colleagues. The Honorable Pak Iwan and Ibu Sarah from LKPP, colleagues from the Asian Development Bank, as well as from the Islamic Development Bank. So first of all, thank you to MAP Secretariat for arranging this webinar. And let me also effort to congratulate the government of Indonesia, specifically LKPP, for coming to this stage. Indeed, this huge effort and great achievement, and also for the great collaboration between the LKPP and the World Bank, as well as the ADB and Islamic Bank for this initiative. So as you may aware that the government of Indonesia continue to be committed to procurement reform, and public procurement is an integral part of the government development agenda. LKPP requests the bank to assist the government for assessing public procurement system in Indonesia, following the MAPS methodology. The Asian Development Bank, Islamic Development Bank have collaborated in the assessment, providing additional technical and financial support as well. So MAPS launching workshop was done in October 2019, and MAP assessment as well as validation was completed in June 2022. And from that period until now, the government of Indonesia or LKPP has initiated and implemented some of the MAPS recommendation, and other are still being implemented. So regarding the way forward and strategy action plan will be explained further by the LKPP after my presentation. Next slide. So based on the assessment on Pillar 1, which is related to the legal regulatory policy framework, here are the highlight of the key strengths, which include the adequate legal and regulatory framework. The government procurement regulation is quite comprehensive, well recorded, and organized in appropriate hierarchy manner. The second is on availability of information on procurement legal framework on the website. So all the procurement regulation, including supplementary regulation, as well as the model bidding document, can be accessed by public at no cost. Regarding the subject matter of the procurement widely defined, the regulation also elaborate the entire procurement life cycle for procurement using state and regional budget, also covering the procurement of good works, non-consulting services, and consulting services, along with the procurement method and timeline. The level of transparency of the procurement opportunity and information on the advertised opportunity is notably high. This is due to the mandatory use of the electronic procurement system, or SPSA, flowing through into the clear regulation of conduct and competitive procurement procedure, starting from advertisement, pre-bid meeting, with submission and notification of contract award. The procurement method are well specified and also include the international bidding over specified financial threshold. And the last one is the legal framework clearly establishes the right of the bidder to challenge or to submit their objection to the result of the procurement process. I think this is one of the important as well. Next slide, please. On the key gaps under Pillar 1, the first is regarding the procurement by state-owned enterprises not subject to the government public procurement regulation. Procurement by SOA using the public fund is not subject to the government public procurement framework. Instead, a separate procurement regime applies according to the Minister SOA regulation. And recommendation for this key gap is to consider conducting a study to assess the impact of the separate procurement regime for the procurement carried out by the SOA using the public fund, in particular in relation to the competition, integrity, and value for money outcome. The second is related to the barrier participation. This is related to the mandatory prerequisite for the business cooperation requirement for foreign business entity. I think the colleague from the Islamic Development Bank also mentioned this. The second is related to the mandatory requirement for foreign firm to join with the local firm, and also the rule of participation of the state-owned enterprise as the bidder. So the recommendation is to consider removing barriers to entry by changing the mandatory requirement on foreign business entity to establish business cooperation with the national business entity, and also to consider introducing rules and or guidelines on participation of the state-owned enterprise as the bidders to ensure the level of playing field and promote fair competition. The last key gap is on the sustainable public procurement and implementation. There is a lack of formal comprehensive policy, strategy, and implementation plan published to implement sustainable public procurement in support of the national policy objective. Detailed guidelines on how to implement sustainable public procurement are also limited, even though that we understand that now LKPP has made some initiative and implement the recommendation, for example, also to develop the technical guidance on how to apply the sustainable public procurement in the procurement process. Next slide, please. On Pillar 2, the key strengths are include the public procurement system well integrated with the PFM system. So Indonesia has already established a strong legal and regulatory framework that align with most international standards on the PFM. Advanced procurement also permit to conduct of the procurement before the fiscal year start, after work plan and budget are approved by Parliament. The second is on the strong institution in change of normative regulatory function. Public procurement system has strong normative or regulatory institution function led by the LKPP. Substantive procurement training program and recognition of the procurement as a profession. This is another aspect also, that there is also a regulation of the training for procurement that contains scope of the institution regulation, accreditation, training program, and procurement is recognized as the profession with the status of a civil servant in accordance with the procurement regulation, which also provide for the establishment of competency standard for public procurement function position. The next one is on the use of e-procurement system is well established. So LKPP has adopted the use of e-procurement system since 2008 and is required for all procurement transaction, including recording any self-management or its quality swakelola outside the e-procurement, and also e-purchasing and e-catalog system to provide a complete view of the public procurement. The last one is on the open access to all procurement information. So LKPP in APROC also provide access to all available information, including current and past tender conducted by agency, both at the central level or at the level of the local government. Procurement plans for each fiscal year, vendor catalog, rules and regulation report, and open data and all application that form part of the e-procurement environment to over a national view of the procurement environment. Next slide, please. Regarding key gaps under Pillar 2, which cover the institutional framework and management capacity, the first point is link between financial procedure and procurement cycle. So there is a lack of interoperability between the SPSA or e-procurement system and treasury system or its quality span that can cover full end-to-end contract information, starting from the procurement process, contract signing, contract implementation, and disbursement payment up to the contract closing. The current PFM system do not provide open access information on timeline for the payment of invoice and also whether the invoice for the procurement of goods, works, and services paid on time. So the recommendation is to ensure an efficient level of interoperability between the e-procurement system and treasury system so that the government could have full end-to-end contract information starting from the planning, procurement process, and contract implementation, including the payment. The second key gap is on the absence of a separate centralized procurement body. The LKPP organized the e-catalogs in absence of a centralized formal procurement agency, even though LKPP only organized e-catalog and not involved in the contracting. There is a situation of perceived potential conflict of interest. So there is need for restructuring of tasks to remove perception of the actual or potential conflict of interest. So the recommendation for improvement is that the government to consider establishing a separate body who will in charge of the consolidated procurement, framework agreement, or specialized procurement. Also, the potential conflict of interest to be removed in the future where the ministry, agency, and regional government will be more proactive to organize their own framework agreement. And LKPP, in that case, will only to focus on providing guidance on initiating the procurement framework for the national product or via e-catalog. The last thing is on the lack of monitoring performance and data analytics to improve the system. So in this case, they need to harmonize, monitor, and evaluate performance of the procurement system. And also there is a lack of data analytics to support policy and reform initiative. The recommendation is to consider development of a performance measurement system, including establishment of a set of KPI to measure the overall public procurement system performance that focus on both quantitative and qualitative aspect. Also to promote the use of data analytics to inform policy changes to obtain better value for money. Next slide, please. For VLR 3, which cover the procurement operation and market practices, based on the assessment, the identified key strengths are the quality and performance of the public procurement. So the assesses practices in planning and implementing public procurement processes appears to achieve a higher level of compliance with the governing public procurement legal and regulatory framework. The second on compliance on quality control and payment. For the assessor sample, the analysis has shown that totally of the contract has complied with the regulatory and contractual provision for inspection, quality control, and supervision procedure. The availability of capacity building program, which is targeting the private company and micro, small, medium enterprise. And the last one is on initiation of public consultation. Whenever there is a proposal for new regulation or amendment to the existing regulation and implementation guidance. Next slide. Based on the assessment, some key gaps under Pillar 3 are include the need for improving procurement planning because of there is a lack of the guidance not on the procurement strategy. So just for information that this assessment was completed in 2022, and after that there are some new regulation or regulation issued by the chairman of the LKPP to implement some of the MAP's recommendation. The recommendation for this aspect is to develop the specific guidance and template for procurement strategy, market analysis, how to conduct the market analysis, and also to develop the procurement arrangement. Also to consider the extension of the practice of the using sustainability criteria to more procurement category and method, and also prepare a detailed technical guidance on the implementation of the sustainable public procurement. The second is on the need for the improving contract management. So in most of the cases, there was some delay during the contract implementation. Based on the data analytic, about 23% of the assessed sample contract have experienced time overruns, which is they experience some delay during the contract implementation. Also, there is a lack of the tracking system of the payment of the invoice during the contract implementation. So the recommendation is to enhance data analytic dashboard for the real-time monitoring and measurement of the public procurement performance, including on the contract management, and also to consider adding information on invoice and payment in the e-procurement system, and also to create the system to track contract amendment, because currently we couldn't find the contract amendment in the current system. And the last one is on the need for better engagement with the private sector. So currently there is insufficient transparency in terms of the consultative process, inadequate capacity for business community and the MSME. So the recommendation is to create a permanent virtual forum in the LKPP website to allow private sector and interested public for continuous debate and information session. Also to enhance further capacity building program for the business and micro, small, medium enterprise. Next slide. For Pillar 4, the identified key strengths include the transparency and accountable financial management of the budget implementation system. So commitment control are in place at the spending unit level and effectively limit commitment to actual cash availability and approval budget or DIPA ceiling. The external audit, internal control system, and also financial reporting. The law on audit of the public finance administration regulates BPK or Indonesia Supreme Audit Institution that is independent to the executive. The next point is on the strong provision on the prohibited practices on the procurement ethic. So this is stipulated clearly in the government procurement regulation. And the last one is on the procurement related to fraud and corruption. There is a secure mechanism for reporting prohibited practice or unethical behavior, as well as also whistleblower protection. Next slide, please. Now the key gap under Pillar 4, which is related to accountability, integrity, and transparency. The first point is related to the CSO involvement in general, not consultative. So based on the survey responses during the assessment, about the 80% of the respondents believe that the involvement of the CSO in the procurement process in general is not consultative and transparent. At the time of the pandemic, the level of the transparency also tend to decrease. The other point is on the lack of adequacy program to support the capacity CSO. So based on the response, also about the 90% of the respondents stated that the program to support the capacity of the CSO to participate in the public procurement is practically non-existent. The recommendation is that the government to consider enhancing exclusive consultative process while formulating changes to the public procurement system. Also to consider build the capacity of the relevant stakeholder to understand, monitor, and also improve the public procurement. The second is on the coordination of the control and audit of the public procurement. Lack of focus on the procurement performance audit and lack of the data on specialized procurement audit. In this case, the recommendation is to issue written standard and procedure for the procurement performance audit, and subsequently to widely disseminate the procurement audit guidance to all the inspectorate general within the ministry. And the last one is on the effective sanction and enforcement system and anti-corruption framework. So there's an absence of the data on systematically identifying procurement-related corruption, lack of follow-up on the procurement-related fraud and corruption, and no evidence of due process related to the administrative department of the blacklisting. The recommendation is the KPK, or Corruption Eradication Commission, to consider publication of the statistic on the procurement-related fraud and corruption and step taken on the systematic identification and mitigation of the procurement related to the fraud and corruption. Next slide, please. And this is the last slide. Regarding the challenges that we faced during the assessment, in addition to COVID-19 pandemic situation, the other challenges is on the data collection, especially related to the procurement and contract data from the selected procuring agency, both at the central level and provincial level. Some of data received are incomplete, so it's difficult for us to carrying out the data analytic with the limited information. For developing the strategic action plan, I think it is important that it needs to be more realistic, aligned with the other reform initiative, and also ensuring a balance of the perspective as well as medium and long-term initiative. I think that's all from my side. Thank you. Over to you, Nicholas.
Thank you, Budi, for this concise presentation. I know it's difficult to put together all those findings and recommendations into just a couple of slides. So thanks for trying to make that work. And finally, we would like to hear now from the country authorities what's the way forward based on the findings and recommendations of the MAPS assessment. I would like to invite now Mr. Iwan Herniwan, Acting Chairman at the National Public Procurement Agency, LKPP, Indonesia, to tell us a bit more about what are the plans to further improve the Indonesian procurement system. Mr. Herniwan, the floor is yours.
Baik, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good afternoon and good morning. My concern, MAPS Secretariat, Bapak Nicholas Penagos, Procurement Hub Leader for Indonesia and Timor-Leste of Food Bank, Bapak Michael Greme Osborne, and Director PFV2 EDB, Ibu Galia Ismapova, and Manager Project Procurement and FM Islamic Development Bank, Mr. Amir, and the Senior Procurement Specialist, Bapak Budi Permana. Ladies and gentlemen, first of all, I would like to say thank you for everyone who participated in today's event, and also for the chance that has given to me as one of the representative of LKPP. We will fully give our support to achieve the aim of this meeting. And I also hope that today's discussion will bring more insight about several aspects in our public procurement. And about this agenda, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the World Bank and MAPS for their prompt response to our request for the assessment of the procurement system in Indonesia. Your support is invaluable and greatly contributes to our effort in improving the system. Following up the assessment result from MAPS, LKPP team has compiled a complete action regarding MAPS recommendation, as has been conveyed by Bapak Budi Permana. We also assured that implementation of recommended action were in line with the LKPP Strategic Action Plan 2025 to 2029. And MAPS recommendations are classified into 4 main pillars. And next comprehensive action, we will begin with our first agenda related to accomplish action. Pillar 1, the first pillar, legal and regulatory framework. MAP key recommended action, consider conducting a study to assess the impact of the separate procurement regime for procurement by state-owned enterprises using public funds. As the response of the recommendation mentioned above, LKPP is arranging public procurement will regulate national single market, which includes provisions for the procurement of goods and services in the state-owned enterprise, regional owned enterprise and village owned enterprise. Moving forward to the next recommendation, which still within the same pillar, implement sustainable public procurement, prepare strategy, action plan, and practical guideline. Regarding to the recommendation mentioned above, there are two actions accomplished by LKPP. The first, LKPP issued guideline for the implementation of sustainable government goods and services procurement, and a model procurement document for sustainable construction work in 2023. And the second, LKPP issued a selection document model for the procurement of wooden furniture that comply with the legality and sustainability verification system through the decision of the Deputy for Strategy and Policy Development for LKPP number 1 of 2022. And then pillar second, about institutional framework and management capacity, MAP key recommendation, link between financial procedure and the procurement cycle. And there are several actions accomplished by LKPP regarding to the recommendation mentioned above, which consists of the first, integrated procurement system, SA and SACTI, budgeting and payment system have been developed by Ministry of Finance. SEVD have been developed by Ministry of Internal Affairs. Citizen Register System have been developed by Ministry of Internal Affairs, and Business Register System have been developed by Ministry of Investment, etc. And the second, the migration of infrastructure from on-the-premise to Google Cloud Platform, GCP. And the third, centralization of the database and e-procurement application to improve data accuracy, increase system availability, and enhance information security. And the fourth, LKPP developed a national procurement planning, a transaction and payment process dashboard through LKPP Big Book and AML application. Ladies and gentlemen, and moving on to the next recommendation, still in the second pillar, develop a performance monitoring and measurement mechanism, including establish of the set of KPI to measure the overall performance of the public procurement system. The mechanism should focus on both quantitative and qualitative aspects by way of the incorporating and using data from different integrated e-procurement platform. Regarding the recommendation mentioned above, LKPP issued circular letter of the head of LKPP number 4 of 2021 regarding procurement governance index, which consists of indicators from the utilization of procurement system, the qualification and competencies of procurement resources, and the maturity level of procurement organization, ITKP. And then the four pillar, third, procurement operation and market practices, MAP key recommended action, need for better engagement with the private sector, enhance further capacity building program for business and MSMEs. Regarding the recommendation above, in 2023, LKPP conducted a training program for small business, and this initiative led to 14% increase in the participation of small business in government goods and services procurement. Yeah. And regard to pillar, the fourth pillar, accountability, integrity, and transparency of the public procurement system. MEP's key recommendation, coordination of control and audit of public procurement. Regarding the recommendation mentioned above, LKPP developed an e-audit feature in e-catalog system 6%. This feature serves as a tool for monitoring electronic transaction and includes procurement transaction information that can identify fraud behavior. Ladies and gentlemen, and digital procurement transformation e-audit LKPP catalog 6 version to ensure that the public procurement conducted in an accountable manner. LKPP works with GovTech procurement, launch e-audit feature in LKPP catalog 6 version. LKPP also collaborates with Financial and Development Supervisory Board to release this feature. In e-audit feature in LKPP catalog will be used by the government internal auditor to monitor the procurement process in e-catalog. And then about strategic action plan. Next, we will move on to next agenda regarding the strategic action plan. There are 5 strategic issues which become strategic objectives for the strategic action plan 2025 to 2029. These issues consist of implementation of the public procurement law in the first, and the second, acceleration and strengthening of the implementation of the digital procurement system. And the third, acceleration of the implementation of procurement institution, a center of excellence in procurement services. And the fourth, the reduction of government goods and services procurement issues. And the fifth, mandate of Presidential Instruction number 2/2022. From the 5 main issues, the metric of strategic plan objective and a strategic plan have been arranged, and which will be measured by the indicators of strategic plan objective. For the example, the first strategic plan objective is improve performance and quality in the application of procurement governance as part of the procurement transformation has 2 strategic plan. The first, increase from the 5 main issues, a metric of strategic goal and a strategic plan have been developed, which will be implemented with indicators as a tool to measure performance effectiveness in achieving the strategic goal with the indicator National Procurement Performance Index. And the second, improve quality and in the application of procurement for governance with the indicator procurement governance implementation index. And then about policy transformation. As one of the LKPP strategic issue, the urgency of the public procurement bill can be described below. The first, integrated national market with regard to creating an efficient and effective national market. And the second, integrated procurement data with regard to the utilization of national procurement data. And the third, the equivalent legal force with regard to procurement regulation need to have a legal framework equivalent to the laws of the other sector so that the procurement aspect in each sector can be harmonized and ensure legal certainty in handling. Certainty in handling issues or dispute or complaint in procurement. And still policy transformation. The substance of the public procurement bill consisting of the first principle, objectives and prohibition. And the second, goods and services in procurement. And the third, procurement actor implementing agency. And the fourth, supplier, vendor in procurement. And the fifth, public participation. And the sixth, procurement dispute resolution, pre-contract dispute resolution, and the contract performance dispute resolution. Yeah. And the seventh, digital procurement transformation, and the eighth, procurement management, mandating the use domestic product of by user. And then still digital procurement transformation plan. LKPP has created a centralized procurement platform that support the digitalization of the public procurement ecosystem. The development of the platform was carried out considering the needs of each procurement stakeholder. Account management on the procurement platform is managed by each stakeholder. So it would be sure for them to access the procurement management and information, also the vendor management system. Meanwhile, LKPP acts as the admin, monitoring and controlling the activities on the platform. And still digital procurement transformation to support data-driven policy making and the integration of the procurement market. There are three main items that should be concerned. The first, digital procurement system. The implementation of the digital procurement system is carried out with the aim of achieving integration and interoperability among digital procurement system and other electronic systems related to procurement. And the second, procurement data integration. And the third, procurement data standardization related to combining data generated through the digital procurement system with other electronic systems related to procurement. And the next slide, you can see procurement dispute settlement. According to the Public Procurement Bill, Chapter 39, it is applying the procurement. Related complaint can be filed by public in accordance with applicable regulation. LKPP categories contract dispute resolution into two types: pre-contractor dispute and contractual dispute. Yeah. And then about public participation in procurement. The role of the public community is needed as a supervisor of the procurement implementation. More especially, community involvement in procurement may include the first, monitoring and procurement project fulfillment. Yeah. And the second, involved in policy development. And the third, calls of community involvement. And the fourth, about complaint handling. Ladies and gentlemen, in general, several points of the MES recommendation have been formulated for implementation in LKPP Strategic Plan 2025 to 2029 and the Public Procurement Bill. There are still several recommendations that need to be coordinated with Financial and Development Supervisory Board and Corruption Reduction Commission, KPK. Ladies and gentlemen, I believe that concludes my presentation. Thank you for the opportunity and your attention. Good afternoon. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you, Mr. Herniwan. I think this is very clear in terms of what you have already achieved based on the findings and what you are proposing to move forward with. Before closing, I see that there's a question related to professionalization, and I would like to invite again Budi Permana to share something very brief about what you found regarding the competency framework in Indonesia.
Thanks, Nicholas. I think in Indonesia, the procurement professional has gained increasing recognition from time to time, and especially when the LKPP or Government of Indonesia also issued the Government Procurement Regulation number 16 2018, which is clearly emphasizes the importance of the procurement professional and outline their role and responsibility. And in terms of the key component of the framework, also indeed that the procurement professional is required specific skill, technical knowledge and skill, and then also ethic and compliance, and also communication and stakeholder management. This is also quite important, especially when the procurement professional also engage to the market as well.
Thank you, Budi. So with that, I would just like once again to thank all the participants and also, of course, the country authorities, the LKPP Indonesia, as well as the partners who collaborated for this assessment, the World Bank, the Islamic Development Bank, and the Asian Development Bank. I would like to invite you all to read the full MAPS assessment, which is available on that link that you see there, along with other assessments across the world, and to follow us on LinkedIn for more updates on other assessments, as well as other webinars that we will host over the coming days. So with that, thank you very much. We hope that this has been useful for all of you, and we expect to see you in future opportunities. Thank you all.
Thank you, Pak Iwan, Ibu Sarah. Thank you, Nick.
Terima kasih.
Thank you so much, Pak Budi, Ibu Dalia, Pak Nicholas, Pak Michael. Thank you so much for all.
Terima kasih semuanya, Pak.